Thank you all for joining us today, audience and panelists alike. The event is part of the Forum for the Future of Agriculture Solution Week, edition 2023. My name is Laura Ticoiu. I will be your moderator for today. I am a policy officer at the European Landowners Organization. We are joined today by three experts from diverse backgrounds who will share their insights on the current state, challenges, and opportunities in the biocontrol market. I would like to present our panelists today, and I will start with Eric de Rödre. Eric is VP Government and Industry Affairs at Corteva, and he has been working in the agrochemical industry for over 2 decades and has expertise in regulatory affairs, government affairs, and sustainability. Our second panelist is Marilda Dascali, EU Agriculture and Bioenergy Policy Officer, BirdLife. Marilda has extensive experience in environmental policy and advocacy, having worked with several NGOs and research institutions in the past. Last but not least, from the farmer's side and also from the science side, we have with us Julie Antony, Scientific Manager and Innovative Markets for the French Grain Cooperative Group. With a background in biotechnology, she spent over 10 years leading innovation in the development of biocontrol solutions. A big welcome to all of you. Now we will begin our panel discussion, and I would like to start with you, Eric. How does Corteva see the role of biocontrol solutions in its portfolio and in the wider context of sustainable agriculture?
Thanks a lot, Laura, and good afternoon, everyone. And wanted to start by saying very pleased to be attending this panel with you today. This is an important topic, and to answer your question, I think we see biocontrol and biologicals in general, or natural origin biopesticides in general, playing a significant role in our journey for a more sustainable agriculture, whatever definition we use for sustainable. So for those of you who don't know Corteva, we are a global leader in seeds and crop protection. For many years, our mission is really to develop solutions for the farmer. We consider ourselves as an input company and as an R&D company, investing almost 10% of our turnover in research, 100% dedicated to agriculture. So anything and everything that helps us to develop things that meets the farmer's needs, to grow crops sustainably and to feed the world is for us a nice tool as part of the toolbox. And biologicals and biocontrol in general is definitely a part of it. We develop it, we continue developing it. Actually, it's not new for us. This is also something it's important to highlight. I mean, more than 20 years ago, some researchers from Corteva invented, actually I should say discovered, because that's a characteristic of biologicals. Most of the time you discover, you don't really invent, right? So, but you discover. So they discovered a bacteria in the soil that was producing naturally a compound that had an insecticide activity. And this researcher identified it, isolated it, and then developed the manufacturing process to grow those bacteria and extract this compound, which is a biopesticide, basically natural origin, completely natural, existing in nature, but it has an insecticide activity. And we developed it and commercialized it in many countries in the world on many crops, mostly on fruits and vegetables. This is another characteristic. Biologicals are very often very specific to a crop. That's something we need to also discuss today, maybe. So they commercialize it and it become a great success. The characteristic of a great biologicals is it becomes a big success, not only for the organic farming, but also for the conventional farming, for a simple good reason is that when it works, an invention becomes an innovation, which is adopted by the market. And this example of spinosad, the name of this compound is spinosad, was a great example of Corteva. It was more than 20 years ago. But based on that, then we developed the capabilities and the research capacity to continue the development of new biologicals on the same basis of natural origin. So try to identify and discover compounds in the nature that have some agronomic value. So that's what we do and have been doing. So for that reason, we believe biologicals and biocontrols will be playing its role in combination with many other techniques and solutions, because it's not always possible to find the right compound for the needs that the farmers have. But it's a key and essential for us. Corteva also, just to illustrate that, Corteva is also a member of CropLife Europe, and 3-4 years ago we issued our commitments for 2030, and in this commitment there was one piece of that which was to invest $4 billion by 2030 into R&D investment for biologicals and biopesticides. So Corteva was very happy, and I'm proud that Corteva signed up on this commitment, joint commitment with the rest of the organization. So the recipe of success for biological is really something that works. First of all, we need always to keep the eyes on the price, which is it has to meet the customers and the farmers' needs agronomically. And there are some opportunities to do that with biologicals. And when it's possible, we do it, and we're gonna refocus some of the research effort towards natural origin products when it is possible. Definitely something that we do. And we see a value for biologicals in that space. It has some it requires some characteristics and some specific needs in terms of R&D. So that's why we tend to isolate and identify special part of the company that will focus on biologicals, because it requires certain new capabilities and different research capacity for that. We continue to collaborate with external partners to identify those compounds, because open innovation is a key element of the further development of biologicals. So we are very, very strongly active in open innovation and collaborating with startups and other companies all around the globe to continue to discover actually those compounds that could be benefiting the farmers in a sustainable way. And sometimes we also collaborate with companies that become part of the company. And recently, Corteva announced the acquisition of Simborg and Stoller, two big players into the biologicals, which makes us now collectively becoming one of the leading companies in that space. So we believe in biologicals with its part. It's one tool of the toolbox, and definitely will play its role. So that's what we are doing, definitely.
Thank you, Eric. That was very interesting to hear. I see we are also joined by Anna Rath. Anna, welcome. I'm happy to see you here. Just to introduce you as well to our panelists and to our audience today. Anna Rath is the President, CEO, and board member at Vestaron, and she has a background in biochemistry and has been leading the development of a new generation of biopesticides based on peptide technology. And Anna, since you have just joined, I will also like to ask you a question. So we just jump into the discussion. Since your company is rather new to the overall European landscape, what is it that you do as Vestaron, and what are some of the main challenges that the biocontrol industry faces in terms of scaling up and reaching a wider market within the European Union?
Sure, thank you very much, and apologies for being late, technical difficulties. Fundamentally, what Vestaron is doing is introducing a novel class of molecules to the world of crop protection. That class of molecules is peptides, which are really just small proteins. But what we think is revolutionary about them is that they combine every bit the same efficacy as your traditional small molecule chemical pesticides, but with the safety and environmental profile of a biologic molecule, that even though it has efficacy out to 2 weeks and beyond in the field, once it gets into the soil organic matrix, it literally becomes candy for the little microbes and breaks down to amino acids in a matter of days. And so we have our first peptide is a broad spectrum insecticide called Spear. It has been on the market in the US now for 3 years. Over that 3 years, we have sprayed on a wide variety of fruit and vegetable and nut crops in aggregate over 500,000 acres, 200,000 hectares. On every one of those hectares, it has been a 1-for-1 displacement of a chemical pesticide spray, and across all of those hectares, we have had zero crop complaints and zero efficacy complaints. So we are successfully displacing traditional small molecule chemical pesticides. Behind Spear, we have our second active ingredient, also a broad spectrum insecticide called Basin, that we expect to launch in the US and Mexico this next year. Spear is on the market in the US and Mexico. We will add Canada this year. We submitted Spear to the EU in January of 2022 and expect to submit to Brazil later this year. We chose the Netherlands and CTGB as our rapporteur member countries. So we have been working through the process with them. And I think that is, the biggest challenge that we see in coming to the EU. It is a longer regulatory process, even if everything goes perfectly. And our understanding is things often don't go perfectly. So, in contrast to what is now a 22-month process for us in the United States, our baseline expectation for the process in Europe is 3.5 years. So that is, I think our greatest challenge. But obviously there are also great tailwinds for us in the European market because there is just such a need on the part of growers for solutions as some of the traditional ones get banned or restricted in their use. So maybe I'll pause there for a moment.
Thank you, Anna. It was very interesting to find out more about what you're doing as Vestaron. Now that we have heard from the industry, let's also hear a bit from the civil society. And Marilda, I would like to go to you now. How does the use of biocontrol solutions fit into BirdLife's broader vision and approach to promoting sustainable agriculture and biodiversity conservation?
Yes, thank you for the floor. I wanted just to start my speech by reminding you some basic facts. The fact that agriculture is underpinned by nature, meaning that we need nature and natural ecosystems to produce our food. Indeed, 70% of the different food commodities we grow are dependent on wild pollinators. And today, intensive agriculture, it's damaging our biodiversity and environment due to the synthetic inputs, such as fertilizers and biocides. And this pollution is also affecting human health, farmers being the first to be the victims of this pollution. So due to all these factors, we need to transform our farming system towards a more nature-friendly one, working with nature and giving place to it within the farm landscape. Biocontrol solutions are quite diverse, and they're ranging from pheromones, microorganisms, to breeding pest predators. So whatever solution is used, we think that what's necessary now is to first seek a change of practices and to not be in a simple replacement of one product by another without putting into question the system itself. By the way, which poses a certain number of issues that are beyond the pesticides. So for us, biocontrol products, what we heard and what we have read also is that some of them function even better when they are used in a farming system with functional ecosystems. And we think that there is room for biocontrols, depending on several criteria, and there is a need for specific experts and specific methodologies to assess the long-term risk that these new products can have on the environment and on biodiversity. And I just wanted to finish with the fact that the use of inputs has also locked farmers into a system where they are heavily dependent on products. They have no hand on them. So I think that there is also a question of how do we have a more balanced market with these products.
Thank you, Marilda, for your intervention. Talking about experts, Julie, you are representing farmers and their cooperatives, but you're also a scientist. What is the perspective of farmers and agricultural cooperatives on the adoption of biocontrol solutions? And what are the challenges you see, but also the opportunities for their use in practice?
So thank you for the floor. So I have prepared some slides to explain that. So just to explain, so I represent farmer, but I represent Vivesia first. And Vivesia, it's 10,000 farmers, and we are located in a specific area in France, in the northeast of France. And we work for our farmers and to focus on the transformation, on the agroecological transformation of our farmer. We don't focus just on one parameters. We have to work on different parameters. So we work on the reduction of the input, of course, on the climate, on the soil, and of course on the biodiversity. So I totally agree with the previous discussion. And when we talk about input reduction, so we work not just on biocontrol, but we work with the genetics of the plant, we work with the decision tools on the spraying, and we work also with artificial intelligence. So it's just one tool. It's like it's already said, it's a different tools, and we have a toolbox, and we have to use the different tools. We are also combined that for the climate, we work a lot on cover crops, and we work on a lot on biodiversity. Like you have already said, the farmer is aware that we have to work on these different pillars, and we have to play with the different tools, because there is no one tools for all European Union, because we are dependent of the climate, we are dependent of the soil, we are dependent of the plant. And if I focus just on one of these tools, so on the biocontrol one, on Vivesia, we work on biocontrol, but we are not alone. Initially, we have 22 agronomists. We work on different focus, and some of them are on biocontrol. But like it has already said, we work with some network. So we work with some French cooperative, and we work with public-private partnership. So we have to work all together to go faster. And the idea is to test, to try, to develop, and at different scale. And in the all subject, the target is to demonstrate the efficiency of the product. And finally, you asked me to talk about bio input. So on Vivesia, we have a dedicated book with the indication of the bio input for our farmers. And one of the most example for me is the case of the trichogram. So it's a biocontrol product. So we use this product against the corn disease. So it's already used, but initially it was not used by our farmer because it was really difficult to use on the field. So we have proposed a specific system with drone to use this product. So we have to forget to take one system or one tools alone. We have to think about all the tools of the toolbox to answer the question for the farmer. And if we have to talk about the challenge for tomorrow for us, for the farmer, the first one, and this is the most important one, is the efficiency of the product. Currently, it's really difficult to prove that the product is good for the farmer and is repeatable in function of the year. And we don't have a lot of a solution in the field crops. We have for vegetable, but it's not in our area. Of course, the second challenge in terms of price, because you have to imagine that the farmer has to produce the crop, but finally, if they have to pay more on the field, you as consumer, the final consumer, you have to pay more for your bread. So it's not a challenge just on the soil, just for the farmer. It's a global challenge from the field to the fork. And of course, for the farmer, it's important that even if we change the system of the culture, even if we change the approach and the agriculture, because we are combined, that we have to have more agroecological agriculture. We have to conserve some good yield and quality of the crop. And for that, at this moment, because we don't have enough solution, we don't have efficient solution at the moment, we have to accept some combination. I know it's not the best way, but for the moment, if we have to resolve the equation that we have to conserve the yield, conserve the quality, and in the same time reduce the input, we have to accept a combination of the different tools, and one of the tools is the chemical one. So it's not just one answer, it's a combination of answer, and we have to go step by step. And of course, the last one, but not the least, it's living matter. So we need some formation and information about that, not just for the farmer, but we have to imagine that to combine the farmer, we have some technician before. So we have to combine the technician and after the farmer to use these new tools. So I hope it answered the question.
Thank you, Julie. It certainly did. I would like to follow up a bit on that and ask you about the level of awareness and understanding of biocontrol solutions among farmers. What do you see are the needs here that need to be addressed in order to increase the knowledge and maybe the adoption of these tools?
For me, in the specific case of Vivesia, we have a dedicated research and development platform on IRD, and one team is dedicated of the bio input in general. So we have already some specific results on our crop and on our area, and we share this result with our farmer. So they are already aware about this product. They are aware first of all by the specific meeting. They are aware about with technical book, annual technical book, and they are aware about the durability and the agroecology. So it's not just a question to be more aware about the biocontrol. It's to convince them that it's a useful product, and for the moment, it's not done the job alone. So this is the more difficult one. So the first challenge is the efficiency of the product, because even if you unblock this system and you prove that the biocontrol alone is has some efficiency and repeatability in function of the year. There is also a challenge of price, but in the new generation of farmers, some of them are really aware about durability, and they are open to pay a little bit more initially to use this system. But again, the first problem is the efficiency. And in terms of cooperative itself, we work with a lot of people, with the public, with private, with the startup. We check a lot of different molecules by year. So it's not a question of know-how or capacity of search. It's a question of efficiency for the moment.
I agree.
Thank you, Julie. I believe that one of the keywords of your presentation here was cooperation. So cooperation between various stakeholders. And with that in mind, I would like to now go back to you, Eric, and ask you how can the industry work together with policymakers, with farmers, to ensure that the biocontrol solutions are integrated into sustainable agriculture strategies at national level and at the European level?
Yeah, that's a very broad question, but I like a lot what Julie said about the technology transfer. When you have a product that works, it is adopted, particularly in Europe, right, where we are very educated farmers, where the know-how is there, etc. So that's really resonate for me. It may not be exactly true in every country in the world, but in Europe, this is really true. The technology is there. When it works, it works. And that's why for Corteva, we have a very high scrutiny on when we collaborate with external partners. We have a very strict rules to really validate that those products are working, because in the biological space, it can easily get off track on the efficacy, and particularly for the large arable crops. So that's what we really need to track. So, but when it works, it is adopted. Back to your question, I think really be a bit provocative here, but what we need the most is the trust of the system. The policymakers, the civil society, to trust the public sector, by the way, but also the private sector, that when it's possible, we do use the capabilities and the capacity we have to develop, discover, innovate with natural origin products. Nature is full of solutions, and every time it's possible, we do it. We have demonstrated that 20 years ago already, and we continue that journey. So really, I insist, it looks like a little bit of provocation, but trust is the biggest thing that we need today. Trust that this growing market of biologicals is just attractive enough for the private sector to continue invest in it anyway. So sometimes we need time, sometimes it's not possible to have biological solution to everything. As I agree with many of what Marilda said, but at the end of the day, the farmers needs to produce as well, right? The number one element of farmers is to produce food. So, and any farming system needs to protect the crop. If you let the nature go, there is no production, or at least no production at the level we need the production today with a planet of 9 billion people, or close to being 9 billion people soon. So this is the first element. Now, from a pure regulatory standpoint, beyond the trust, what is the most helpful for continuing this journey of innovation is predictability. The public sector and the private sector R&D companies need predictability on the registration process. To develop a new solutions, whether it is chemically, whether it is biologicals, whatever it is, it takes a lot of time and a lot of resources to validate that it meets the requirements, the regulatory requirements in terms of safety and protection, but also to demonstrate that it works for the farmer. So it takes a lot of time. So predictability of the regulatory system is the key component. And today, it's true that in Europe, the overly conservative risk assessment, which is more an hazard-based assessment more than a risk assessment, an overly use of the precautionary principle makes European regulation a little bit lagging behind many other regions in the world. And up to now, it was mostly impacting the chemical solutions. Nobody was complaining about that except us and the farmers. But now we're going to see that this system may start to impact also the development and the market access of natural origin solutions, because natural origin solutions have also some certain hazards in it, right? By definition, they are biocide by definition, so or by essence. So the question is, how do we make the right and relevant and a proportionate risk assessment for those solutions, considering that they are natural solutions? If we continue with the system today, I'm a little bit afraid that we may see a lot of new innovative natural origin solutions solving the problems of the farmer around the world, but not necessarily the European farmers. So a true appropriate regulatory system is key in our thing. Predictable and proportionate. That's what we need.
Thank you. Those were very interesting points. Marilda, I will be giving you the floor in a second to get reply to some of these arguments there, but I would like to go now to Anna and discuss a bit also on the regulatory side, because I know you as Vestaron have been working on some proposals in terms of EU legislation, what are the proposals that you make in order to support the development and registrations of biocontrol products?
Sure. Let me first address a couple of the things that were particularly brought up by Marie-Luda and Julie, just so that everybody understands fully Vestaron's products. I'm not suggesting that we are single-handedly going to solve all of agricultural's problems, certainly not, but I think we are a very interesting, as you say, tool in the toolbox. We have demonstrated efficacy of SPEAR versus a variety of leading synthetics in more than 500 replicated trials over many years across many countries, across many crops. So there is no question about the efficacy, and it is not situation-dependent efficacy or environment-dependent efficacy. It is just efficacy, and it's because we target exactly the same receptors in the nervous system of an insect that the traditional chemistries target. We just target it with these larger molecules that are safer because they have larger, more complex binding sites, and so they are less likely to bind to off-target things and have negative effects when they do. And then the other thing that makes these molecules so much safer is that they do degrade to amino acids very rapidly in the environment. So that is efficacy. On the point about broadacre crops, yep, it's true. Fruit and vegetable and nut crops tend to pay a little bit more of a premium, and so that is where we started. But we have gotten to a place now on our cost of goods curve where we are also entering the broadacre row crop markets in the US this year. And so when we come to market in Europe, it will be across all crops. And then pricing, we actually do price at parity with the leading branded chemical synthetics. So we are a one-for-one replacement from the grower perspective. Our products can also drop right into a tank mix. They have 2-year shelf life stability. So it really is a successful, displacer. Again, not for everything, but you can displace a chemical spray with this spray, right? And what's very exciting to us is as we bring base in and additional molecules to the market, we will be able to be our own successful rotation. And so we've shown that a rotation of 2 different peptides can have the same efficacy as the rotation of 2 different traditional chemistries. So that's just a little bit more about Vestaron and our peptides. And then on the subject of what are we trying to do in the EU? So there are really 2 major things. The first is that in the sewer legislation, as it stands, the definition of biocontrol is a fairly narrow definition and would exclude our products and exclude products that many other companies are developing that could be really important parts of this toolbox. And so we've made specific recommendations about how to make sure that our peptides are covered in the definition of biocontrol, but more broadly, we are advocating for a definition of biocontrol that is, I think to Eric's point about proportionate, right? That what we should care about is not necessarily just the origin of these things or how they are manufactured or whatever, but rather what their environmental fate is, what their tox is, right? All of the things that we evaluate all chemicals for. So that is sort of one body of work that we are doing relative to the sewer. And then the other one is, as Eric said, making sure that there is a clear and reliable and hopefully expedited path to market for these kinds of solutions. And so just to give you a sense, so when we introduced SPEAR to the EPA in the US, at that time, there was the registration division, which took care of chemical pesticides, and there was the BPPD, which took care of microbials. And nobody had ever seen an isolated biologic molecule before as a potential regulatory submission. And so there was this big question, what are we going to do with you? And so what they decided to do with us was basically have us go down the BPPD path, which is a faster path, but with the same kinds of requirements that the chemistries have. And so, as I said, that's now a 22-month path, but we do all of the same kinds of studies, right, that the chemistries do. And the way it works in regulatory is there are sort of tiers of studies. And if you do the tier 1 study and you pass with flying colors, then you don't have to do the tier 2 study and so on. And so even though we have basically the same requirements as a chemistry, or traditional chemical, we end up having a much smaller regulatory package because we just limit test out of these things. When you show that you degrade to amino acids in the environment in a matter of days, then you don't have to do a whole lot of environmental fate studies because amino acids are just, they're not a residual. And so coming up with something similar to that in the EU that does acknowledge that the regulators just have less work to do, have less studies that they need to review for molecules like this. And as a result, it could be done on an expedited basis as it is in the United States. That is kind of the other body of work that we are doing relative to the EU.
Thank you, Anna. That was very informative. I would like now to move to Marilda and give you the floor and the chance to also reply to some of the ideas that have been shared so far, and maybe discuss a bit more about what you as BirdLife see the role of policy making in the overall biocontrol discussion.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to the word that was mentioned here, trust. I think that indeed we need to have trust into each other. The civil society needs to have trust into the manufacturers, but this will be very difficult if we don't feel that farmers and citizens' interests are not what moves the manufacturers so far. So again, the current system, it's on perfusion of inputs. And what we are saying is that we would like to reduce these dependencies as much as possible by using and by relying more on the services the ecosystems, healthy ecosystems provide, which, by the way, are much more cost-effective solution for farmers at the long term. And I think that the way forward, it's for us, the good way forward is the one that Julie presented to us. It's this combination of tools. We're not saying that chemical inputs have to be banned in arable fields where we know that so far, if there is a pest attack, you cannot do anything else than actually treat it. As when we are sick, we use antibiotics, but still using antibiotics in a preventive mode, it's not good for our health. I think it's exactly the same for the ecosystems. We need to use our agronomic knowledge that we have gathered so far. We need to use our indeed innovation tools, precision tools. So in order to tailor actually the response that would be based also into what kind of agronomic systems, agricultural systems we're talking about. We will not have the same response if we are in a horticulture or if it's in arable fields. Indeed, we need to tailor our response, but keeping in mind that we need to have a response that it's as with this trying to do no harm to the environment, because we have just one environment so far. So yeah, I think that the way forward, it's really to combine our knowledge. And also, I wanted to jump on this productivity narrative, which for me, I understand, of course, farmers need to produce, and we want farmers to produce our food. Farmers need also to maintain the ability to produce food. Because, I mean, of course, the maintain the productivity is super important, but what kind of productivity are we expecting if we are completely if our soils are totally eroded, or if we're facing water scarcity each year, like it's happening right now in the southern part of Europe? So this is why I'm saying taking this only from the pesticides use or the what kind of product to use hook, it's it's not, it won't capture the systematic changes that we need. And this, if we work with nature, we will also address the pesticide issue, but we would also address the water one. We would also address the soil health and so on. And I think that, just to finish, maintaining a resilient farming system, it's more important than getting a good yield year at the end.
Thank you, Marilda. We will now move into the Q&A section of our panel discussion today. We already have some attendees who have submitted questions. If there are still more that you would like to ask, now is the time. And I would like to start with a question from an anonymous attendee, which is addressed to you, Marilda. So our anonymous attendee says that Eric was talking about the regulatory burden for biocontrol products, and Anna about the rapid degradation of amino acids. Isn't there also a high environmental cost in continuing to use synthetics during the years and years it takes to bring a natural molecule to farmers? What would be BirdLife's view on that, the environmental cost of regulation?
Oh yeah, I forgot to answer your question about the policies and how they need to evolve. On that aspect, just wanted to remind you that the chlorodeacon, it's a product that was banned in the 90s, and that we can still have it in the environment in some of the outermost region of France. So it's the persistence of the synthetic molecules. It's a high risk, and we haven't assessed it perfectly. We have allowed molecules loudly that now we're still dealing with. So for me, it's extremely important indeed to better assess the persistency of the molecules that we put on the market. And I think that we cannot speed up the regulation, and we need really to be, as I said, for the biocontrol solution to assess the risk it might cause on the environment, also on the long term. But I think that continuing to use synthetic, as I said, so it's really the persistency, and yeah, for the environment, it's a high cost if we still continue to. We have our, I think it was 1/3 of the water, drinkable water in France that was polluted with banned pesticides. 1/3 of the drinkable water. So the costs. The environmental cost of the regulation, it's high, and we need really to have a proper regulation, and we cannot speed up the regulation. That would be my response.
So, Laura, do you mind if I sort of jump in and kind of talk about how we see kind of the overall ecosystem benefits of our peptides? So, really completely agree. It's at all levels, right? You can't just think about one aspect of the impact of traditional chemistries or the potential, beneficial impact of biocontrols. And so we think about it on every level, from on the farm, worker safety, right? So these things have really no mammalian toxicity. We feed 5 grams per kilogram of rat to rats for 90 days. All you get is fat, happy rats, right? So from worker safety up to, as you point out, water quality. So because you're degrading to amino acids in the environment, there is no sort of residual that you're going to find in the water. You can go up another level to biodiversity. You can spray spear even when your pollinators are in the field. It will have no effect on them, right? It's obviously renewable because it's not produced from fossil fuels, it's produced from fermentation. Then because of that, biodiversity benefit, what we've seen is you can actually do fewer total sprays over the course of the season because we leave the beneficial insects alive, and so they actually do part of the work for you. Then you get up to things like a healthier soil microbiome, which can in turn reduce the need for fertilizer use. But then at the very top, we actually also think about land use. And so this is the problem when you sacrifice yield, is if you are producing less in Europe, and if Europeans still want to eat, then land somewhere else in the world is going to need to come into production, and that land might be less well regulated than land in Europe. And so you have to think about sort of the, not just the European implications, but the global implications of farmers being able to maintain their yields and productivity. So I just wanted to make it clear that, you know, we think about sort of this, the whole ecosystem impact of these things as well.
Thank you, Anna. I see, Eric, you have also unmuted your microphone, so I believe you also want to add something on this.
No, I was unmuted for the entire session. So, but yeah, I think I would just echo what has been said. I mean, the issues that farmers are facing are so complex that there's not going to be one single solution, right? It's going to be a mix. It's not black and white. Nothing is black and white. To Marilda's point, I mean, now the regulatory standards and requirements for new solutions, whether they are chemically produced or inspired by nature or natural products by itself. They, for instance, the persistency in the environmental phase is at the top and at the center of the regulatory approvals. It is at the center of what we do to select what type of product and solution we advance in our pipeline. So, I mean, all of those have been learnings that the industry, private and public, has integrated. So now the regulatory standards in Europe are really high, and from our perspective, sufficiently high enough that it's already deteriorating the toolbox for the farmers significantly enough that the production is really at risk now. And maybe more importantly for the topic today, those super high regulatory standards may become even blocking points for advancing some biological solutions as well, and biocontrol. That's what we need to keep in mind. I agree with all of that's been said, but at the same time, and me being even personally very close to farming communities, myself personally, I mean, we are starting to feel the complexity of producing anymore now, and that's the challenge. So collectively, we need to find the right balance between all of these. Biologicals, biopesticide, natural origin solutions is part of the toolbox. And yes, we need to have the right regulatory system to enable it, but in a very proportionate way, because otherwise we're gonna face significant issues of production. And I like the comment of Anna about the land use. I mean, it's all about this land sharing or land sparing, right? So at some stage, we're gonna have to make some choices. But again, I'm confident that collectively, we can make it if we go very rationally and combine solutions. Farmers are very pragmatic people. And when we talk about future generation, I don't see any single job on the planet but farmers that have this in their mindset, the transmission to the next generation. This is by nature what they do, and the management of their land is so essential and so centric of what they do that I'm quite confident that we're gonna find those good balance of things and accommodate all of the nice requirements that have been expressed today in this call.
Thank you. I think we can still take another question. Maybe talking about long term, we have a question from Cecile, who is asking if there are any studies tackling the potential impact of using more and more biocontrols in the long term for the nature, such as could wider use of a lot of different pheromones disbalance the nature and negatively impact biodiversity in the long term. She says the question is addressed to Anna, but it could even be addressed to all panelists. So maybe Anna, you could start on this one.
I don't have specific knowledge of long-term pervasive use of pheromones and what it might do. Obviously, that's a very different class of biocontrol than what we work on. I would say that the thing that we think is really compelling about peptides is that they have the ability to be narrowly targeted to the pests that we want to address with them, right? And have less of the off-target negative side effects on beneficial insects. And so I think that's a much, that's a helpful thing to the environment, right? To be a little bit more targeted in what, in your biocidal activities, right? And so and then there is the issue of residuals in the environment, right? And so again, the thing that we think is so compelling about peptides is they degrade to amino acids, which is a nutritional building block in the environment. And so we think that combination of greater specificity and degradation to amino acids is really what makes peptides specifically a very compelling biocontrol. But again, there's a wide world of biocontrols out there. Different ones will be needed or useful for different circumstances.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. I think we have reached the end of our panel discussion today. I would like to thank all of you, panelists and participants, for being here with us today. It has been an informative and thought-provoking discussion. I believe we have found some common ground, even though maybe our perspectives and angles are sometimes different. We hope that this discussion has provided some insights and ideas on how to overcome the challenges that we tackled and promote the use of more natural solutions in crop protection. We must continue to work together, industry, policymakers, civil society, scientists, farmers, to ensure the sustainability of the agricultural sector. Thank you to our audience for showing up and for engaging with us. If you haven't yet, please check and register for the upcoming Solution Week events under the Forum for the Future of Agriculture 2023 edition. So thank you, and stay close for the upcoming events.
Thank you, Laura.
Bye-bye.